98, 99% of the problems I see on keto and low carb is the person is under eating protein and they don't get enough electrolytes. And if we fix those things, then magic happens. Yeah.
Right. It's been really interesting to see carnivore kind of be that space almost between keto and paleo where, you have more emphasis on prioritizing protein more, but you still keep, the carb restriction side of keto.
Yep.
So I'm curious what your opinion's been just seeing, carnivore. What do you think of the carnivore diet and how much it's grown in the past, I guess a couple of years?
I think it's really cool. I frequently caution the folks in that scene to not be so crazy that they start competing with the raw vegans for being like religious zealots. Like, it's a great tool. It's a really remarkable intervention. Because I was a cancer and autoimmunity researcher originally, and then like I developed the autoimmune paleo protocol. Like that was my gig, and it's helped a lot of people. But I saw people who had tinkered with AIP for 3-4 years and they had some improvement, and then they went carnivore, and within 2 weeks they were like healed. And that was where I was like, oh, I can't have any ego about this. Like, outcomes are what drive everything. And so it's probably not the first whistle stop I would make in like dietary change. I wouldn't say go from a standard American diet to carnivore, unless you have some really significant health problems, like some ulcerative colitis or different GI problems. But I could still maybe make a case for kind of a, start off again with that kind of paleo foods within keto ratios and tinker with that and see if you get improvement. And if we have any other niggling things hanging out there, then let's fiddle with that. I've tinkered with periods of carnivore. I can't say that I felt better. And in some ways I would argue I maybe felt a little bit worse. When we first moved to Texas, the sun and the heat and everything, like my digestion is great. I was feeling really good. And then I caught something from a green salad and it destroyed me. I mean, like any type of plant material that I ate for 3 months after that, I would eat it, and then 15 minutes later, I was in the bathroom. Like, it just destroyed me. I had to eat 100% carnivore then for like 3 months, and that was a huge boon. But since then, I noticed that I do fine with a few berries. I do fine with a little bit of melon. Asparagus I do well with. Green beans I do well with. Mushrooms I do pretty well with. So I rotate, but I keep in those plant materials that I do well with. And I just pay attention to my digestion. And if I have any wonky digestion, that thing's gone. Ironically, I do great with tomatoes, like evil nightshades. I just do great with them. I have no problem with them. So I've really streamlined things down to just those things that work for me. But I honestly, I've made the case that the ketogenic diet is the most underutilized tool in medicine that we've ever had. And carnivore is going to be very similar to that. When you look at the ubiquity of GI-related issues, neurological issues, and the interrelationship of these things, like what Jordan Peterson has described with this lifelong crushing depression and GI problems, and then it resolves. And that also, I mean, a 22-year-old guy who looks at Sean Baker and Sean's jacked and, over the top and everything. He's like, I want to be like that. That 22-year-old knucklehead will eat steak and water and salt and motor through it because 22-year-old males are idiots and they'll just do that. Our frontal lobe hasn't finished forming yet. So we make all kinds of bad decisions. But for the average person, the only reason why they're going to stick to salt and beef and water is because the alternative is horrible, what health related, neurological related. And so it's one of these things that I'm really looking forward to some research popping up on the carnivore approach for some very specific kind of disease states, because I think it's going to be an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny, the criticism that carnivore gets, and it just shows how, brainwashed we are. Yeah, I mean, because you put like a photo of a steak salad and everyone would, extol that as being so healthy, and then you take the salad away and they're like, you're going to kill yourself, and it just doesn't make sense. It's just not logical. But I love how much people are really understanding how nutritious meat is, and this is the most nutrient dense food, and it's been really cool to see that coming out from our community. So what have you discovered about coffee recently? Was it related to the microbiome, and what are your thoughts on coffee overall?
It's interesting. Coffee in general, when we look at the epidemiology, which we love to beat up epidemiology because usually it doesn't go well for us in the low carb space. But there was one study that was really interesting where they looked at coffee consumption and all-cause mortality. And there was kind of a linear relationship with reduced all-cause mortality with increasing coffee consumption. But what was really interesting about that was that at higher levels of coffee intake, and I forget what the cut point was, but it was recognized that the diet was worse. But yet, and again, this is not correlation and causation and all that, but it was interesting. It was acknowledged that people at very high coffee intake also had a poorer diet, but their morbidity, mortality was relatively better. So that was really interesting. And this was part of my longevity talk that I gave this year. Did it at Metabolic Health Summit and a few other locations, but there was a somewhat similar piece that looked at sun exposure, and smokers who get exposed to the sun have as reduced likelihood of morbidity and mortality as non-smokers. It's so often, which I was just blown away. So, these are some kind of interesting things. I think that on the coffee side, like I've noticed my ability to deal with caffeine has dramatically reduced as I've gotten older. Huh. We do 6 scoops of coffee beans that we put in our coffee maker, or 8 scoops. 6 of them are decaf, 2 are calf. And even then I notice I get a little bit jittery and shaky with it. And I told Nikki just today, I'm like, I might need to go off coffee. Like, I'm just not sure if I see an upside to it. And then on the immunogenic side, there is an outfit called Cyrex Labs. And they're very sophisticated at testing for gluten cross-reactivity substances. Coffee, chocolate, dairy, a bunch of items are gluten cross-reactive substances. And so even though it may not cause the full-blown kind of like celiac response that many experience, it can be a systemic inflammatory kind of input. So in general, I think coffee is probably a pretty good thing, but there's some caveats to it. And, at some point, the caffeine may be problematic for some people, I know.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning into this part of the episode. I hope you got some great takeaways from it. I hope that it was interesting, insightful. Be sure to head over to social media and let us know what you thought of the episode, what you got out of it and liked, and any insights that you had from the episode. I was thrilled to get to have Robb on the show with us today. I'll put links to his book. If you are interested in trying out keto with me as your coach and guide, you can head over to ketogenicgirl.com. I have all the meal plans that I use personally myself and have used with thousands of clients over the years. And I also have coaching that come with all the meal plans in our Facebook group. And I also have private coaching available over there as well. So hope you guys are having a wonderful fat-filled day. And until the next episode, wishing you a wonderful rest of your day.